For my research paper, I intended to research the pros and cons of controlled burning of trees. This topic has been of interest to me ever since visiting Samuel P. Taylor State Park in California. This past school year, I went to school in California and experienced the smog and air pollution that resulted from the incredible forest fires that occurred. This again fueled my curiosity of the effects of fire on forests and the environment. To narrow the focus of this term paper, I zeroed in on the pros and cons of controlled burning of trees, specifically in California, and I used the research that has been conducted from that state. Imagine waking up on a crisp November day and walking outside only to be greeted by unbreathable air and smog so intense that a stretched out hand could not be seen. This experience was shared by millions of people across California, but the worst of it was faced by residents of Northern California, Butte County specifically. The fire displaced the people of Butte County, engulfing more than 14,000 homes and killing at least 85 people. Californians are no stranger to forest fires. Therefore, they have implemented many fire eliminating strategies to combat this natural disaster. The state's strong history of fire suppression has allowed the debris and underbrush within the forest to grow, resulting in wildfires that are exponentially worse than in the past. The lack of fire also allows diseases and epidemics to flourish and quickly spread amongst the plants and animals living in the Californian forests. The implementation of controlled fires will reduce the number of wildfires in California, which, in turn, will maintain the safety of the general public, quality of air, and the health of the forests. The benefits of utilizing controlled burning techniques greatly outweigh the disadvantages. Forest floors are littered with decaying matter, including animal carcasses, fallen trees, etc. According to experts, fallen trees and limbs left to rot on the forest floor will decay at a very slow rate. In fact, large logs can take more than 100 years to decompose. This aggregation of debris, in conjunction with the high temperatures and low rainfall, creates the perfect fuel to ignite and sustain widespread forest fires. California's temperatures have been at an all-time high due to global warming, and the year-long drought created the perfect conditions for the enormous fires that transpired this year. This past year in California, 2018, there were 6,266 wildfires, which scorched more than 876,000 acres of land across the state. These fires produced as much carbon dioxide emissions as the entire state produces in a calendar year through the usage of electricity. 68 million tons. By allowing the Forest Service to come in and calcine the underbrush that has built up, the area and intensity of the fire are able to be contained. Besides eliminating dead matter, prescribed burns can also stimulate the ecosystem by killing plants and weeds that are damaging the species that are native to the area. Plants that are afflicted with disease can quickly spread their illnesses and contaminate other plants and even animals due to overvegetation of the forest. Burning is an easy and fairly quick way to kill the diseased plants and return their nutrients to the soil. In the burned area, nitrogen and other nutrients remain and are leached back into the soil as rain soaks the ground. This fertilized soil is then taken advantage of by new healthy plants that will be able to better sustain and assist the ecosystem rather than causing more harm by infecting other plants. The United States Forest Service has several requirements, more commonly referred to as a burn window, that must be met before a controlled fire may be implemented. Having an established goal for the fire to accomplish and sufficient pre-planning is one of the most important factors considered by the U.S. Forest Service when approving prescribed fires. Forest rangers will examine the moisture levels of the forest life, dead and alive, to determine whether or not a burn is necessary. Wind is an extremely crucial factor to examine before the beginning of a fire. Ideally, wind speeds must be low in order to prevent the rapid spread of the fire. Humidity also plays an important role in choosing the time of the fire. The humidity level must not be so low as the fire will be harder to contain with low levels of moisture in the air. Unhealthy air quality is one of the many ways that fires can cause damages to those who are miles away. The effects of the Californian fires from the summer reached all the way to the East Coast. Smoke particles from the fire were released into the atmosphere and traveled by jet stream to areas all across the country. The Air Quality Index, AQI, in California reached an all-time high in Butte County. The AQI readings for Butte County in November averaged 535, which is the worst air quality in the world. To put things into the perspective, AQI runs from 0 to 500. 0 to 500 indicates good. 51 to 100 is moderate. 101 to 150 means unhealthy for sensitive groups. 151 to 200 is unhealthy for everyone. 201 to 300 ramps up to very unhealthy. And finally, 301 to 500 is straight up hazardous. The air quality in Butte County was so detrimental that 18% of schools in California canceled classes and advised students and their families, if at all possible, to stay indoors and turn on air conditioners and filters. Poor air quality not only causes temporary inconveniences such as coughing, watery eyes, and runny noses, but it can also cause permanent damage to a person's health. People who have pre-existing heart conditions and respiratory diseases are especially vulnerable to the considerable quantities of smoke caused by wildfires. Children are also extremely susceptible to the effects of smoke, as they are still growing and developing their airways and other bodily organs. The debris and ash left behind by wildfires is toxic, and some gases and particles are carcinogenic. These tiny particles are breathed in through the nose and mouth and can infiltrate the lungs and bloodstream. Toxins in the bloodstream can be carried throughout the body, affecting all parts of the body. Asthma is a common side effect of prolonged exposure to smoke. Not only can wildfires take a toll on one's body, but they can also be extremely difficult to deal with mentally. After a deadly wildfire demolished nearly the entire town of Paradise in California, residents were just recently allowed to return to the town and view the aftermath. Residences, buildings, cars, etc. were hardly recognizable as they had been reduced to ashes by the wildfire. Some of the residents of Paradise had lived there their entire lives and lost all of their possessions in the fire. More than 50,000 people were forced to evacuate Paradise. The state of California, as well as the federal government, have gathered funds to compensate the residents of Paradise for their losses, but no monetary amount will be able to replace the memories, relationships, and connections that were formed in the area. The survivors are now faced with numerous questions. Where will they live now? Will they be able to restart their families elsewhere? How will they replace all of their possessions? Will they be able to rebuild Paradise in the future? This type of trauma can be devastating for families. Their communities and livelihoods literally went up in flames. Though there are uncountable benefits to the utilization of prescribed fires, there are downfalls as well. Just as wildfires do, controlled fires release gases such as carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases into the air. If it is not handled properly, controlled fires can escape the area designated to be burned and transform into a deadly wildfire. There is no way to accurately predict weather patterns and the nature of fire 100% of the time. Another drawback of prescribed fires is the number of people it requires. For each burn, an extensive number of knowledgeable people must be there to monitor the conditions of the fire and to ensure all goes as planned. Recently, CAL FIRE has been increasing the number of acres they prescribe to burn each year. Beginning at a lowly 3,000 acres a few years ago, they raised the bar this past year to 19,000 acres, and in the future they hope to control the burning of at least 20,000 acres. The first step in receiving more funding for these controlled fires is convincing the general public to trust the utilization of prescribed fires and reminding them that fire is not always a bad thing. Fire creates heat, which cooks food, heats homes, and toasts warm marshmallows for s'mores. Just as Smokey the Bear preaches, only you can prevent wildfires. It is important for individuals to take caution when lighting campfires outdoors and make sure they have close access to water or a fire extinguisher in order to put out the fire in case it gets out of hand. Just as technology has been refined to prevent the destruction of our homes while still reaping the benefits, with the proper knowledge and tools, prescribed burns can also be an invaluable tool in preventing wildfires. Thank you for listening to my presentation.